everywhere I went on a publicity junket for one of my directed films, I'd get asked the question, inevitably by a journalist, when's the next Indy coming out? And they weren't asking me the question, because there was a hidden agenda, it was a piece of news. They wanted to know for themselves, not even for the radio station or TV station or newspaper they were representing or magazine they were representing. They wanted to know for themselves. And they would always say to me, sometimes not even on camera, are you going to make another Indiana Jones picture? And that was a question that was not only asked of me, and of course I did nothing about it, but it was asked of Harrison. And I know it was asked of George. And all of us have been asked that question. Harrison was the center of this piece from the very beginning. The casting of that man to play that role was the most important thing we did, more important than my directing it, all the writers that came in to write all the different episodes. More important than almost the sum of all of its parts was the fact, in my mind, that this series would not have been as successful as it was if it were not for Harrison Ford playing that role. And when I realized that the strength of Indiana Jones is the way we fashion this for Harrison, not just the MacGuffin, the concept, but fashioning this character to still be Indiana Jones, that was the key for all of us. I think this film was more demanding on Harrison from a physical standpoint than the other three movies were. But there were things, because of new, safety devices, harnesses and wires that we digitally removed later on, which allowed Harrison to do some death-defying stunts, but always keeping him safe. And so physically, in terms of, I guess, if Harrison had an odometer, there would be more mileage on Crystal Skull than probably Raiders of the Lost Ark. 1957, when our film takes place, is totally informed by the Cold War, by McCarthyism, by hot rods and girls wearing leather sweaters and ponytails, and and saddle shoes. I mean, this is pretty much the 50s. The music is Elvis Presley, and it's a whole new era. We're no longer in the 30s anymore, and there's been a couple of decades, almost a couple of decades have passed since we last saw Indy, and Indy has grown up and grown wiser and probably grown a lot stronger too. And we thought that we would take all the trappings and turn them into virtues of the mid-1950s. Mutt enters Indiana Jones' life on a Harley Davidson, just like Marlon Brando in The Wild One. And we even gave him a little bit of the Brando motorcycle hat. He comes out of a cloud of steam from a train about to leave the station. And he comes with the plot in his hand. And he basically delivers Indiana Jones, Professor Jones, and the audience the beginning of a plot. He comes to tell Indy that an old colleague of Jones's has been kidnapped. A man named Professor Oxley, who Indy actually went to school with at the University of Chicago years ago. And he comes with that information, and that begins the plot of Indy 4. I had no second choice for Mutt. When I saw Shia in Holes with my kids years ago, the Disney film, I actually said, he'd be great in an Indiana Jones movie. And he reminded me a little bit of River Phoenix. And so it was just one of those moments where I kind of bookmarked my impression of Shia when I first saw him. And it was when I was watching dailies on Disturbia that I knew he was going to be Mutt in Indy 4. I said, there's just no doubt about it. That's who it's going to be. I sent George Lucas dailies from Disturbia. George saw the dailies, loved Shia, and said, go ahead and cast him. It was so great to work with Karen again after all these years. She hadn't changed a bit. Wait till you see her in this movie. She is the same feisty Marion Ravenwood as she was when we released the picture in 1981. Director friends of mine who have worked with her said, don't be surprised if she disappears into this character, and they were absolutely right. She totally disappeared into Irina Spalko. And she reappears the second I say cut.